Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Agilopedia. If you're serious in learning Agile, this is the place you need to be. So today in this video, we will talk about definition of ready and try to debunk the myth that it is useful, that it is Agile. So bear with me, stay with me for a couple of minutes, and we will prove that a definition of ready is a Scrum anti-pattern. I have spent working as a Scrum Master for a substantial amount of time in my career. Over the years, and still today, I see a number of teams using a stringent definition of ready. Some do it because they like to attain a higher level of sprint completion, a higher sprint predictability. Some do it because they are still hungover from traditional methodologies. They like to know what needs to be done. They like to have that clarity, and that clarity of who needs to do what needs to be done. This is just the traditional mindset. So trust me, even during the times that I was working as a Scrum Master, especially in my early years, I too used to coach my teams of how to make a stringent definition of ready and how to enforce it on the product owner, on the Scrum team, to make sure that we have the user story ready to be picked up when the time comes in the sprint planning meeting. A typical definition of ready that any team uses is something like that. It is make sure that before the sprint planning meeting, the product owner writes all the relevant user stories, make sure that all the user stories are detailed. Everything that needs to be done is documented to the minutest of that, to the minutest detail, that all the acceptance criteria are written, that the story meets the famous INVEST criteria or acronym, that all the supporting or prerequisites must be done. For example, the data needs to be ready, the UX, the wireframes, they need to be ready, reviewed, and all those stuff. Now, I'll prove you why doing something of this sort is a typical Scrum anti-pattern. It is because if we do or prepare a checklist of this kind for the user stories to meet the definition of ready, it goes against two important principles of Agile and Scrum. One, empiricism. So Agile or Scrum, it's based upon the very foundation of empirical process control. And empiricism says that the future is unpredictable. To manage a complex product in a VUCA world, it is important and imperative that we learn by doing it. So if you want to be successful at building a complex product, it is necessary that you just start doing it. Learn while you are building that product, and then do it better in the next cycle. That's empirical process control. No matter how hard you try or how honest attempt you make at predicting the future, have everything documented upfront, you just cannot do it because the world is complex. You just cannot forecast what would happen. So why even attempt predicting it? Now, if you write a user story and freeze all the requirements, have it detailed, it kind of impedes a team's capability to empirically control the development, to take new learnings from it, because it takes them into that traditional mindset that everything that needs to be done is written and we must build the product as in what has been written by the product owner. The next reason why it's an anti-pattern is that a good story is always emergent. So before explaining it to you what an emergent user story means, it's important that you know what are the two kind of user stories. The first kind of user story is embedded user story. An embedded user story is typically written by one person. It's pre-filled by a single person before the game begins. And when the game begins, all the participants or the team, it plays along the lines of what has been pre-written by somebody. The second story type is emergent. In this case, there's no one writing the full user story. Maybe an abstract is written up front, but the story detail, it emerges, it evolves and is written by the players who are playing the game while they are playing the game. So if we take this to our sprint, a good user story, the details of a good user story would evolve once the sprint has begun, once the team starts doing it, once the team starts interacting with itself. So if you wish to achieve success at building a complex product in real world, it's important that your requirements are emergent and they're not embedded. Let me give you an example from real life, which would help you understand both the importance of empirical process control and the importance of having requirements that are emergent in nature. Imagine you're in the kitchen and trying to replicate a dish of a famous chef. So if you want to make a good dish, what do? You go to Google and search for the recipes from some famous chefs. You select one of the chef whose recipe you like, and you execute that recipe in the order that the chef has written, because you know that you are not building something that is complex. You're trying to make a simple product because it's something that is repeatable. You know, there is an embedded requirement. There's a requirement that exists in the embedded form. That is the recipe. That is the sequence of steps elicited by the chef. And you know that if you execute that recipe in the precise and accurate order the chef has said, you would be able to recreate the cuisine, which you do most of the times. Now imagine, in the same example, now imagine you're trying to make a dish which doesn't exist. It's not known. There's no name of it if you try to Google that name on internet. So what do? You start from scratch. You follow the principle of empirical process control. That is, you start making the dish, writing the recipe as in when you are making the dish. You taste it at every given opportunity. You invite your family members, your wife, your kids, your parents to taste it and give their feedback. And based upon your feedback in tasting and their feedback, you make amends in the cuisine. You add something, you add a raw material, you add some spices, you take something out, and then you try to do it again and again until you have uh, that perfect cuisine. So essentially what you're doing, you're following both empirical process control because you're learning by doing it. There's no repeatable process that exists. You're making it, you're tasting it, and you're adapting your dish while not following anything that is in embedded form. The recipe that you're creating, the perfect recipe, that is emergent in nature. So now we have given two good reasons why a definition of ready is an anti-pattern in Scrum and why you should stop doing it if you are. Follow my YouTube channel, Agilopedia, and together let us debunk more such agile myths. Thank you.